The bioluminescent creatures of the deep Pacific had always fascinated Dr. Daniel Cross, but nothing had prepared him for what he discovered 3 miles beneath the surface on that October morning. The research submersible Deep Current descended. Through layers of crushing darkness, its lights cutting through the abyss as Daniel monitored the sonar readings with practiced precision. "Thermal anomaly detected at 270 degrees, announced Dr. Amelia Foster from the co-pilot seat, her fingers dancing across the instrument panel. "Whatever it is, it's big, and it's generating significant heat signatures." Daniel adjusted. Their descent trajectory, his pulse quickening with the familiar thrill of discovery. As a marine biologist specializing in deep ocean ecosystems, he had encountered many mysteries in these depths, but the readings they were getting defied conventional explanation. The object appeared metallic yet organic, massive yet somehow elegant in its design. "There," Amelia whispered, pointing through the reinforced viewport. "Do you see it? It's through the swirling sediment and dancing particles illuminated by their floodlights." Daniel saw something that made his breath catch. A vessel of impossible beauty lay partially buried in the ocean floor, its surface shifting between silver and deep blue like liquid mercury. Strange symbols pulsed along its hull with a soft, rhythmic glow that reminded him of a heartbeat. "That's not terrestrial," he said quietly, his scientific mind racing through possibilities even as his heart hammered against his ribs. "Amelia, we need to document everything. This could change our understanding of everything." As they maneuvered closer, Daniel noticed something that made his stomach lurch. A section of the vessel had been torn open, revealing glimpses of an interior that seemed to pulse with its own internal light. Floating nearby, barely visible in the sub's lights, was a figure. "There's someone in the water," Daniel said, his voice tight with urgency. "Amelia, prepare the recovery arm. We need to bring them aboard." "Daniel, wait," Amelia cautioned, her scientific training warring with basic humanitarian instincts. "We don't know what we're dealing with. It could be dangerous." But Daniel was already activating the submersible's mechanical arm, his movements sure and determined. The figure in the water was clearly unconscious, possibly dying, and every instinct in his body screamed that he had to help. Arm gently grasped the floating form and drew it closer to their vessel. Daniel got his first clear look at what they had found. She was humanoid, but clearly not human. Her skin held a subtle luminescence that seemed to shift from pale silver to deep blue, and intricate patterns traced along her arms and face like living tattoos. Her hair, floating freely in the water, appeared to be composed of some kind of fiber that caught and reflected their lights like spun starlight. Most striking were the gills along her neck, slowly opening and closing as she breathed the water around her. "She's beautiful," Amelia whispered, her earlier caution replaced by wonder. "And she's alive. Look at the gill movement," Daniel guided the recovery arm with delicate precision, bringing the unconscious being into their emergency airlock as the water drained away. He watched in fascination as the gills along her neck sealed themselves and her breathing shifted to draw air into her lungs. The adaptability was remarkable, suggesting a biology far more advanced than anything on Earth. "We need to get her to the surface," Daniel said, already beginning their ascent. "She needs medical attention, and we need to understand what happened to her ship." During the 2-hour journey to the surface, Daniel found himself stealing glances at their unexpected passenger. She wore what appeared to be some kind of form-fitting armor, made from a material that shifted and flowed like liquid metal. Weapons were attached to various points on her body, clearly marking her as some kind of warrior or soldier. Yet in her unconscious state, she looked vulnerable, almost fragile. "What do you think she is?" Amelia asked quietly, running preliminary scans with their portable equipment. "The bone density readings are off the charts, and there are organs here I can't even identify." "I don't know," Daniel admitted, checking their ascent rate. "But she's someone's daughter, someone's family. That much I'm certain of. Never brought her here. Whatever happened to her ship, she deserves our help." When they finally reached the surface and transferred to their research vessel, Ocean's Edge, Daniel made a decision that would change the course of his life forever. Instead of immediately contacting the authorities as protocol demanded, he chose to keep their discovery quiet until he could understand more about the situation. "We'll take her to the medical bay," he told Amelia, as they carefully moved the unconscious alien aboard their ship. "If she wakes up and proves hostile, we'll deal with that then. But I won't turn her over to be dissected or imprisoned without at least giving her a chance." The medical bay of the ocean's edge was well equipped for emergency situations, and Daniel worked through the night to stabilize their patient. Her vital signs were strong, but unlike anything in terrestrial medicine, and he found himself improvising treatments based on educated guesses about her alien physiology. It was near dawn when she finally began to stir. Daniel was dozing in a chair beside her bed when he heard a soft musical sound that might have been a groan of pain. Her eyes fluttered open, revealing irises that shifted color like opals, and Daniel found himself looking into the face of someone who was clearly intelligent, clearly afraid, and clearly not from Earth. "Easy," he said softly, keeping his hands visible and his movements slow. "You're safe. You're injured, but you're going to be all right." She tried to sit up quickly, then gasped and fell back as pain shot through her body. When she spoke, her voice was melodic despite the obvious distress, the words flowing in a language that sounded like water over stones. Daniel couldn't understand the words, but the meaning was clear in her expression and tone. "I don't understand your language," Daniel said gently, "but I want to help. My name is Daniel. Hey, can you understand me?" For a long moment, they stared at each other across the vast gulf between species. Then, something remarkable happened. Her eyes began to glow with a soft, internal light, and when she spoke again, the words came out in accented but clearly understandable English. "You saved me," she said, her voice filled with a mixture of wonder and confusion. "Why? Your people and mine are enemies." Daniel felt a chill run down his spine at her words, but he kept his expression calm and open. "I saved you because you needed help. That's what people do for each other. At least that's what they should do." She studied his face intently, as if searching for some sign of deception or hidden motive. "I am Kestra Vorthok, warrior of the Zephyrian Imperial Fleet. I was sent here to study your defenses before our invasion begins. You should kill me now, human, before I complete my mission." The honesty in her voice hit Daniel like a physical blow, but instead of fear or anger, he felt an unexpected surge of compassion. Here was someone trained for war, programmed for conquest, that she had just given him information that could save his entire species. The contradiction fascinated him almost as much as it frightened him. "I'm not going to kill you, Kestra," he said firmly. "And I'm not going to turn you over to people who might. You saved my life by telling me the truth just now. The least I can do is return the favor." Something shifted in her expression, a crack in the armor of certainty she wore. "I do not understand you, Daniel Cross," she said, and he realized she had somehow learned his name from his thoughts or equipment. "You show kindness to one who came to destroy you. Is not logical warrior behavior." "Maybe that's because I'm not a warrior," Daniel replied with a slight smile. "I'm just a scientist who studies life in the deep ocean. And right now, the most fascinating life form I've ever encountered is sitting in my medical bay, trying to understand why someone would choose compassion over fear." As the sun rose over the Pacific, casting its golden light through the porthole of the medical bay, Daniel Cross and Kestra Vorthok began a conversation that would echo across the stars and change the fate of two worlds forever. Over the following weeks aboard the ocean's edge, Daniel found himself drawn into conversations with Kestra that challenged everything he thought he knew about conflict, loyalty, and the nature of consciousness itself. Her wounds healed with remarkable speed, aided by her advanced biology and what she called cellular regeneration protocols that her people had developed over millennia of warfare. "Your species fascinates me," Kestra admitted one evening as they stood on the ship's deck watching dolphins play in the vessel's wake. "On Zephyros, we are taught that strength comes from conquest, that survival demands the elimination of potential threats. Yet you show me kindness without expectation of reward." Daniel watched the graceful arc of a dolphin breaking the surface and felt a familiar sense of wonder at the natural world. Maybe that's because we've learned that cooperation often achieves more than conflict. Those dolphins work together too. Hunt. To protect their young. to navigate vast oceans. They're stronger as a pod than they could ever be alone. Your military leaders would not agree, Kestra said quietly. Her luminescent skin dimming with what Daniel had learned was a sign of distress. When they discover my presence, they will see only a threat to be eliminated. They will not understand that I have begun to question everything I was taught. Dr. Amelia Foster had been monitoring their conversations from a respectful distance, her scientific curiosity warring with growing concern for Daniel's safety. She approached them now, her expression troubled. Kestra, you mentioned an invasion fleet. How long do we have before they arrive? Kestra's opalescent eyes reflected the setting sun as she considered the question. 3 solar cycles in your measurement. Commander Thane Vorthok leads the advance force. He is my brother, my teacher, and the most skilled warrior our people have ever produced. When he discovers that I have not reported in, he will assume I am dead and proceed with the assault. Can you contact him? Daniel asked urgently. Explain what you've learned about humanity. Maybe prevent the invasion entirely. You do not understand, Kestra replied, her voice heavy with the weight of impossible choices. Thane raised me after our parents died in the border wars with the Nexarian Empire. His entire existence is dedicated to the protection and expansion of our civilization. To him, showing mercy to an enemy species would be the highest form of betrayal. As if summoned by their conversation, the ship's emergency communication system crackled to life. General Patricia Hayes of the Earth Defense Force appeared on the main screen, her steel-gray hair and weathered face marking her as a career military officer who had seen too much conflict. Dr. Cross, she said without preamble, our deep space monitoring stations have detected anomalous energy signatures approaching our solar system. We have reason to believe you may have encountered something related to these readings. I am ordering you to return to port immediately for debriefing. Daniel exchanged a meaningful glance with Kestra, knowing that their time of peaceful discovery was coming to an end. General, I can confirm that we've made contact with a representative of an alien civilization. Situation is more complex than a simple first contact scenario. Dr. Cross, you will surrender any alien materials or beings to military custody. Upon your return, this is not a request. The transmission ended abruptly, leaving them in tense silence. Kestra stood slowly, her warrior training reasserting itself in the face of approaching conflict. I will not allow myself to be captured and used as a weapon against my people. Nor will I allow harm to come to you for the kindness you have shown me. I must leave. Where will you go? Daniel asked, though he already suspected the answer. Your ship was destroyed. You're stranded here. There are emergency protocols, Kestra explained, moving toward the communication array with fluid grace. I can send a distress signal that will bring a rescue vessel. But once I do, the invasion timeline will accelerate. My brother will interpret any Terran knowledge of our presence as evidence that your species is more dangerous than initially assessed. Dr. Foster stepped forward, her scientific mind working through the implications. What if there was another option? What if we could arrange a meeting between your brother and our leaders? It's a chance for dialogue before anyone starts shooting. Kestra's laugh was like silver bells touched by wind, but there was no humor in it. Humans have a saying about teaching old creatures new behaviors, do they not? Thane Vorthok has commanded fleets since before your civilization developed written language. You will see any attempt at negotiation as either weakness or deception. 3 days later, as the ocean's edge approached San Francisco Bay, long range, sensors detected the approach of something that made the combined nuclear arsenals of Earth seem like children's toys. The Zephyrian advance fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of the solar system, their ships gleaming like crystalline daggers against the starfield. Commander Thane Vorthok stood on the bridge of the flagship, Stellar Dominion, his presence commanding absolute attention from his crew. Unlike his sister, his luminescent skin held patterns of deep crimson and gold that marked him as a battle-tested veteran. When the tactical officer reported the location of Kestra's emergency beacon, his expression hardened into something that could have cut diamond. "Prepare assault pods," he commanded, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had never known defeat. "If my sister lives, she will be retrieved. she has been harmed, this world will burn as an example to any who would threaten Zephyrian. Citizens. Back on Earth, Daniel stood with Kestra on the deck of their research vessel as military. Helicopters circled overhead, and naval vessels moved to intercept them. General Hayes had mobilized every available resource, turning San Francisco Bay into an armed camp. I could fight, Kestra said quietly, her hand resting on weapons that Daniel now knew could level city blocks.
Yes.
I could escape and attempt to return to my people, but that would only ensure that the coming war destroys everything beautiful I have discovered here. Daniel turned to face her, seeing not an alien warrior but someone he had come to care for deeply over their weeks together. Then don't fight. Stay and help us find another way. You said yourself that cooperation often achieves more than conflict. You asked me to betray everything I was raised to believe, Kestra replied, but her voice lacked conviction. To choose the welfare of a species I was sent to conquer over loyalty to my own people. I'm asking you to choose love over fear, Daniel said simply. You've seen what humans are capable of when we work together. You've experienced compassion, friendship, maybe even something deeper. Is that not worth fighting to preserve? Above them, the sky suddenly blazed with the light of atmospheric entry as Zephyrian assault pods began their descent. Each pod contained enough firepower to destroy a small city, and they were aimed directly at the concentrated military forces surrounding the bay. Kestra closed her eyes, her entire body beginning to glow with an internal light that Daniel had never seen before. When she opened them again, her decision was written in their opalescent depths. Thane, she called out, her voice somehow amplified to carry across the water and up into the sky itself. Brother of my heart, warrior of our blood, hear me. I have found something here worth more than conquest, more precious than victory. Give me the chance to show you what I have learned. The lead assault pod altered its trajectory at the last moment, splashing down in the bay with tremendous force, but without firing a single shot. As the pod's hatch opened and Commander Thane Vorthok emerged, his weapons powered but not yet aimed. The fate of two civilizations hung in the balance. The warrior commander's eyes found his sister immediately, and Daniel watched a complex range of emotions play across his luminescent features. Relief at finding her alive ward, with confusion at her apparent alliance with the humans surrounding her. Kestra Thane called across the water, his voice carrying easily in the still air. You have missed 17 scheduled reports. The fleet assumed you were dead or captured. Why do you stand with these creatures instead of signaling for extraction? Kestra stepped forward, placing herself between Daniel and her brother's weapons. Because they showed me mercy when they could have shown me death. Because they chose understanding over fear. Because in them, I have found something our people have forgotten in our millennia of warfare. And what is that, sister? Thane asked, his weapons beginning to power up despite his obvious desire to avoid harming Kestra. Hope, she replied simply. Hope that strength can come from protection rather than destruction. Hope that two species can build something together that neither could achieve alone. Hope that love can be stronger than the warrior's code that has defined us for so long. His brother faced sister across the waters of San Francisco Bay with the military forces of Earth and the invasion fleet. Of Zephyros poised for a conflict that would devastate both civilizations. Daniel Cross made a choice that would echo through history. He stepped forward to stand beside Kestra, taking her hand in his, and facing the most dangerous warrior in the galaxy with nothing but faith in the power of the connection they had forged. Commander Vorthok, Daniel called out, his voice steady. Despite the fear threatening to overwhelm him, your sister has shown me that courage isn't the absence of fear, but the willingness to act in spite of it. I'm asking you to be courageous enough to listen before you decide whether we live or die. The standoff in San Francisco Bay lasted 3 agonizing hours. Commander Thane Vorthok floated in his assault pod, weapons trained on the assembled Earth forces, while his sister stood defiantly beside the human who had somehow captured her loyalty. Above them, the Zephyrian fleet maintained position at the edge of the atmosphere, their massive vessels casting shadows across the California coastline. President Elena Rodriguez arrived by emergency transport, her diplomatic experience honed by decades of international crisis management. She understood that this moment would define humanity's future among the stars, and she approached it with the gravity it deserved. Commander Vorthok, she broadcast on open channels. I am President Rodriguez, speaking for the people of Earth. Your sister has shown us that our species need not be enemies. Will you allow us the chance to prove that cooperation can benefit both our civilizations? Thane's response was measured, but tinged with the skepticism of a career soldier. President Rodriguez, my sister has always possessed a curiosity that bordered on dangerous. That she has found your species interesting does not make them allies. What assurance can you give that humanity will not use any peaceful contact to develop weapons against us? Dr. Amelia Foster stepped forward, her scientific credentials lending weight to her words. Commander, we've spent weeks studying your sister's biology and technology. If we intended treachery, we could have learned far more by dissection than by conversation. Instead, we chose to heal her wounds and learn from her wisdom. Kestra moved closer to the edge of the dock, her voice carrying across the water with urgent passion. Thane, in all our cycles of conquest, what have we truly gained? New worlds to strip of resources, new peoples to subjugate, new enemies to fight in endless succession. These humans offer something different. Partnership, growth through cooperation, strength through diversity. You speak like a philosopher. Not a warrior, Thane replied, but Daniel could hear the conflict in his voice. The bond between the siblings was clearly deep, and Thane's love for his sister warred with his duty to their empire. It was then that Elder Nyx made her presence known. The ancient Zephyrian leader materialized on the bridge of the flagship Stellar Dominion, her form wavering between physical matter and pure energy. She was old beyond measure, having lived through the rise and fall of a dozen galactic civilizations, and her word carried absolute authority among her people. Thane Vorthok, her voice echoed across both fleets through quantum communication arrays. I've observed this encounter from the beginning. The wisdom Kestra has discovered here resonates with truths I learned long before our empire was born. Perhaps it is time for our people to remember that true strength comes not from the fear we inspire, but from the respect we earn. The appearance of Elder Nyx changed everything. Even the most hardened warriors of the Zephyrian fleet would not question her judgment, and her implicit support for Kestra's position shifted the entire dynamic of the confrontation. Daniel felt the moment when the tide turned, when the possibility of peace became more than just a desperate hope. Commander, he called out, what if we could offer your people something they've never had? What if, instead of another conquest, you could gain true allies in the challenges that face all spacefaring civilizations? Speak plainly, human, Thane responded, his weapons finally powering down. What could your young species possibly offer to ours? President Rodriguez seized the opening. Innovation through diversity, Commander. Our scientists tell us that every problem your people have faced in their expansion across the galaxy. Humanity has encountered analogous challenges in our own development. Different perspectives, combined knowledge, solutions that neither of us could achieve alone. Over the following hours, unprecedented negotiation took place across the waters of San Francisco Bay. Kestra served as translator and cultural bridge, her growing understanding of both species allowing her to find common ground where none had existed before. Daniel contributed his scientific perspective, helping to identify areas where human and Zephyrian knowledge could complement each other. The breakthrough came when Dr. Foster presented data on Earth's biodiversity and ecological systems. The Zephyrians, for all their technological advancement, had struggled with the environmental collapse that inevitably followed their resource extraction methods. Earth's approach to sustainable development, born from necessity and refined through centuries of trial and error, offered solutions to problems that had plagued the Empire for millennia. You preserve rather than consume, Thane said wonderingly as he reviewed the ecological data. Your species has learned to thrive within limitations rather than constantly expanding beyond them. This knowledge could save worlds throughout our territory. And your people's mastery of faster-than-light travel and energy manipulation could help us explore the galaxy without repeating the mistakes that led to so much conflict, President Rodriguez replied. We could build something together that neither of our civilizations could achieve alone. Elder Nyx spoke again, her ancient voice carrying the weight of cosmic wisdom. I have seen the rise and fall of 1,000 empires, child warriors of both species. Those that endured were those that learned to grow through cooperation rather than conquest. The path you are choosing today may seem unprecedented, but it follows patterns as old as the stars themselves. As the sun began to set over San Francisco Bay, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson that reminded everyone present of the beauty worth preserving, the formal negotiations began. The treaty that emerged over the following weeks would be known as the Golden Gate Accords, marking the first peaceful contact between humanity and an interstellar civilization. The ceremony formalizing the agreement took place 3 months later in the same bay where the crisis had begun. Representatives from dozens of Earth nations joined with Zephyrian fleet commanders and Elder Nix, herself in a celebration that honored both human and alien traditions. Kestra and Daniel stood together as the primary witnesses to the historic moment, their relationship having evolved from desperate alliance to something deeper and more profound. When President Rodriguez asked them to speak for both species, they had prepared remarks that captured the essence of what had been achieved. 3 months ago, Daniel began, we were two species divided by fear and misunderstanding. We stand as partners in the greatest adventure either of our civilizations has ever undertaken, the peaceful exploration of our shared galaxy. Kestra continued seamlessly, her voice harmonizing with his in a way that seemed to make the very air around them resonate with music. We have learned that love is not weakness, but the greatest strength any being can possess. It is love that allowed a human scientist to save an enemy warrior. It is love that gave that warrior the courage to choose peace over war. And it is love that will guide our species as we build a future among the stars. Elder Nix stepped forward, her ancient form solidifying into something almost human in its warmth and dignity. I invoke the blessing of the eternal tides, she intoned using a ritual that predated the Zephyrian Empire itself. May the love that brought these species together flow through all their endeavors, creating currents of cooperation that will carry both civilizations to heights neither could reach alone. As she spoke, every Zephyrian present began to glow, with internal light, their luminescent patterns shifting and flowing in perfect synchronization. The effect was breathtakingly beautiful. It's like watching a living aurora dance across the assembled crowd. The years that followed the Golden Gate Accords exceeded even the most optimistic projections of what humans' Aphorian cooperation could achieve. Joint research stations were established throughout the solar system, with human creativity and Zephyrian technology combining to solve problems that had plagued both species for generations. The first joint colony ship, designed with human ecological principles and Zephyrian engineering, launched 5 years after first contact. The world it found became New Harmony, a planet where children of both species learned together in schools that celebrated the diversity of sapient life. Daniel and Kestra were married in a ceremony that blended traditions from both worlds, exchanging vows that were broadcast across the galaxy as a symbol of what cooperation could achieve. Their children, when they came, possessed the best qualities of both species: human curiosity and compassion combined with Zephyrian wisdom and longevity. But perhaps their greatest achievement was the example they set for countless other first contact scenarios. The protocols developed from their experience became the standard for peaceful interspecies diplomacy, helping dozens of civilizations find common ground instead of battlefields. Commander Thane Vorthok, meanwhile, had found his calling as an explorer rather than a conqueror. Leading joint expeditions to the galaxy's most dangerous regions, he discovered that protecting others brought him greater satisfaction than defeating them ever had. His flagship, renamed Unity's Promise, became a symbol of hope throughout the known galaxy on quiet evenings, when their duties as ambassadors and scientists allowed them time alone. Daniel and Kestra would walk along the same dock where their species had first faced each other in potential conflict. Their love had become legend, inspiring countless songs, stories, and artistic works across dozens of worlds. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if you had chosen differently that day in the deep ocean? Kestra would ask, though she treasured his answer no matter how many times she heard it. It's never, Daniel would always reply, pulling her close, and marveling at how her luminescent skin seemed to pulse in rhythm with his heartbeat. I made the only choice that mattered. I chose to see a person in need rather than an enemy to fear. Everything beautiful that followed grew from that single moment of compassion. Their story became more than just a tale of love between individuals. It became a testament to the power of choosing understanding over fear, cooperation over conflict, and hope over despair. In a galaxy vast and full of wonders, the love between a human scientist and an alien warrior continued to shine as proof that the greatest adventures begin with a single act of kindness. The stars that had once divided their peoples now connected them in an endless web of possibility, and every ship that traveled between human and Zephyrian worlds carried with it the promise that love truly knows no boundaries. In the deep places of the ocean, where their journey began, new species continued to evolve and flourish, reminding all who studied them that life finds a way to thrive. When given the chance to grow in peace, and in the crystal archives of new harmony, their story was preserved for future generations as proof that sometimes the most impossible dreams are simply waiting for someone brave enough to believe they can come true.